Imagine a world where a girl waits in a doctor's office for her test results to find out whether she got cancer or not, when her mother and her grandmother and her great-grandmother have all had it. Well, now imagine a world where we don't have to worry about hereditary diseases being passed from generation to generation. Well, genetic engineering is making this possible, so that we don't have to worry about this anymore. Many people see genetic engineering as, scientists playing God in a laboratory with no concern for their actions. But today, I'll tell you, simply how it works, how it actually betters the future in agriculture and in the medical field, and some risks that are involved with it and some common misconceptions. So first, I'll tell you how genetic engineering works. Well, simply put, it is almost cutting and pasting genes which involve traits of certain things, like whether a plant is tolerant for hot and cold weather, or whether it's drought resistant, into other things. So we can make plants or other organisms more tolerant to these things. So traits that would normally be passed, even traits that would normally be passed down from generation to generation, can either be added or taken away. So now that I've told you a little bit about how it works, I'll tell you about how it's going to better the field in agriculture. So first of all, it makes we can make crops more resistant to diseases that are common to that specific species. We can do this by finding the genes in other plants that make them resistant to this disease and adding them in to the species, and therefore making them resistant to that disease as well. We can also make crops grow in places where they normally wouldn't, or be more drought tolerable. So we can grow, for example, tomatoes in the desert where we wouldn't normally be able to, and therefore we can fight global hunger for this. So you can grow crops in places where it's needed, rather where we have the equipment to, like in the United States. We can grow it, in Botswana or somewhere where they normally wouldn't be grown. We can also grow larger quantities of food and make them easier to grow for the locals there. So I'll tell you about a little bit how genetic engineering is affecting new medical research. Well, hereditary diseases can be stopped, as for example, some types of cancer, from being passed down from generation to generation, by actually finding the gene that causes this and removing it from even the embryo while it's in its mother. This process is called pre-plantation genetic diagnosis, or PGD. So many people disagree with this fact because we can also, in the same aspect, choose our children's eye color or hair color, which leads to designer children. But the good thing about this is we don't have to worry about our children coming down with certain diseases like Down syndrome anymore. We can actually stop this so that they won't have to deal and possibly die from this fact. We can even, in insects, stomp out malaria and find the gene that they're able to carry malaria, and eventually stop the spread of malaria through humans. So the fact of designer children, though, brings about some risks and concerns and some misconceptions. So traits can also be picked out so your children has certain eye colors or hair colors. So what's stopping scientists from becoming playing God or something? Well, that's when our rules and regulations come in that stop and regulate these things. So I urge you all, when a piece of legislation comes into your local government, to consider also the benefits that it may cause, whether when it concerns genetic engineering, and not just the stigma of, oh, it's just scientists playing God, or bad rumors about this fact.
Spelled weird wrong. Wait.
Yeah,